China is dismissing concerns over its nuclear program after a report from the Pentagon claimed that its stockpile of warheads had grown significantly over the past year. Beijing has criticized that account, saying it is full of prejudice and distorted facts, adding it has no intention of engaging in a nuclear arms race. The report says China has accumulated some 500 operational warheads in its arsenal. It projects that figure will likely double to over 1,000 by the year 2030. That is still far fewer than what the US and Russia possess. Experts estimate that Washington has about 3,700, while Moscow owns almost 4,500. Despite concerns over China's expanded arsenal, the report did note Beijing remains committed to a no-first strike policy, meaning it will only use its nuclear weapons if it is attacked first. And for more, CNA's Olivia Xiong joins us live from Beijing. Olivia, tell us more about China's response to this report. It appears not to actually have disputed the figures outlined in this report from the Pentagon.
That's right. No outright refusal or denying the figures in the report. But what was made clear at the Foreign Ministry's briefing today was that China was firmly opposed to this latest report. The ministry instead reiterating what we have heard before about China's position, saying that the country adheres to a nuclear strategy of self-defense and that it has no intention of engaging in an arms race with any country, adding that as long as any country does not use or threaten the use of nuclear weapons against China, that it has nothing to be worried about. But we have to note that this comes amid a rather tense security environment and greater scrutiny over China's military ambitions, especially as Chinese President Xi Jinping has made the call for China's military to become a world-class one by 2049. Also, as the US report has said that China has put increasing pressure on the self-ruled island of Taiwan on various fronts, from the diplomatic front to the political and military fronts as well. Beijing, on its part, has said, though, that this is in response to what it sees as Taiwan independence attempts, also angered by the U.S. committing billions of dollars in terms of arms to the self-ruled island, also amid tensions in the South China Sea. Now, China instead is pointing its finger at the U.S., saying it's the country with the largest and most advanced nuclear arsenal in the world, and it insists on the first use of weapons and continues to invest in upgrading its nuclear forces. Have a listen to the Foreign Ministry today.
首先美方的这份报告和此前的类似报告一样，罔顾事实，充满偏见，散布中国威胁论，目的呢不过是为了自己这个维持军事霸权找借口。中方对此坚决反对。中国坚定奉行自卫防御的核战略。我们始终把核力量维持在国家安全需要的最低水平，无意同任何国家搞核军备竞赛。
Before we heard from China's foreign ministry spokesperson there, you were describing relations between the US and China that were clearly less than warm. But they have picked up. There's been hope that they might improve, with American officials, fairly senior ones, visiting China in the last few months. Our hopes that Xi Jinping might go to the APEC summit and have a face-to-face with the US president there. But does this report throw a spanner in the works as far as President Xi actually attending APEC and possibly having a meeting with the US president there?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it, Wei Su? The issue here is that China continues to view this report and the accusations by the U.S. as part of a broader effort that it sees as trying to contain its rise and to put pressure on it. And this was also made reference to in the Pentagon's report. And earlier this year, if you recall, the U.S. had already named China as its biggest security threat. Now, the Chinese Foreign Ministry today also said that the U.S. should view China's strategic intentions objectively and rationally, and called it to stop publishing irresponsible reports and that's a direct quote, saying that it should take practical steps to maintain the stability of bilateral relations. We will have to see how this plays out. China last year, we know, cut off military dialogue with the U.S. following then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan. Following that, we also saw that the Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu had refused to meet his U.S. counterpart at various forums. Now, the Chinese Defense Minister, we have to note, has not been seen in the public eye since the end of August and is reportedly under investigation. But at the same time, we know that Beijing had called for the U.S. to lift sanctions on him before any talks could proceed. But in recent months, we have seen somewhat of a warming of ties that you have mentioned, given a flurry of visits and meetings between leaders on both sides. The U.S. last week said it had accepted an invite to attend a defense forum here in Beijing later this month, although at what representation, likely not the U.S. Defense Secretary attending, but at a lower level. So we will have to see how this affects any further meetings between the two countries and whether Mr. Xi will actually make that trip and meet the U.S. President next month.
Thanks. Olivia Xiong reporting live to us there from Beijing.